you know people are watching. People are gonna be on the best behavior if they know they're being recorded, watched by members of the public, and being held accountable. I had a lot of things. I could just talk about a million things here.
Talk about bad judges.
There are some bad judges out there. No, does anyone know Peter Troves? Anybody hear that name? He was an activist. He was a marijuana activist from Oakland County. And this was a case, well, he was a marijuana activist very early on. He was actually a medical doctor. He had one of the very first dispensaries, and he got raided. And they ended up being in a court battle for 4 or 5 years, and ended up pleading to 3 marijuana felonies with no jail, just probation, just to get them to leave him alone. He had just spent all of his money in it. This was several years ago. And Peter, who's a friend of mine now, he goes to vote this year in the 2020 election. And he goes and he brings his absentee ballot that he didn't mail, so he brings it in with him. And he goes to the desk, and this lady knows who he is, and she doesn't really like his politics, and knows his family and all that. And he's wearing a mask like you're supposed to at that time. And the lady at the counter says, "Peter, I can't accept this ballot unless you lick the envelope." And Peter says, "Well, I'm not going to take it. I'm not licking this thing. You know, just take it and you don't figure it out." So like, "No, sir, you have to remove your mask and lick the envelope." And the police report, so I'll let you know where this is going, says that Peter vigorously licked his envelope. Ladies, Peter Troves, vigorously licked his envelope and handed it to the clerk and says, "Well, guess I got COVID." Okay, that's it. He walks out, doesn't hear anything. This is November 4th, right? And a month and a half goes by, and it's December, it's late December, and he gets a call from the Keego Harbor Police, said, "Peter, you got to turn yourself in on Monday. There's a felony warrant for your arrest." He's like, "Well, what do you?" This is a guy who's been through hell with the government in the whole state. He's got a big killdozer flag in his yard. He's a great guy. And they said, "Peter, you are charged with making a biological terrorist threat." And this lady apparently told the police that he told her, like, so when he goes, "Well, guess I got COVID," she told the police, "Well, he made me feel like he had COVID and was giving it to me." And the police took this serious. If you said that about someone in the government, they laugh. Okay, but because she's actually like the election person, she can just send the police to go and get people that she doesn't like. And we have to go to the preliminary. So when you're charged with a felony, you have the right to preliminary exam. You have to establish probable cause. We have very low standards. Somebody would come to court and say he robbed me, and like that's it. It's gonna the case is gonna move on just on that. Well, we have her in court, and she says a lot of stupid things, but what time did this happen? Oh, 11 in the morning. Okay, what time did you leave? Or she says 11 in the morning, and I was so scared I called my husband and told him to flee and go up north to our second home. Oh my gosh. Poor thing. So she calls her husband to flee, the city. I go, well, when did you leave the voting place? She said, well, I had to be there. I stayed there till 8:30 p.m. So you thought you got COVID, and you stayed and handled thousands of ballots, and shook hands and pens, and letting people in and breathe in, but yet you tell your husband to go? So case gets bound over. It's ridiculous. I mean, this is all on Zoom and everything. And the next day, the prosecution sends me a sentencing enhancement notice that says, well, because Mr. Troes pled to those 3 marijuana felonies, 4 or 5 years ago, he is now a 4th-time habitual offender, and his maximum is now life in prison if he's convicted of this charge. And I see this, I'm like, this is great Facebook news here. I'm going to post this right now. But receiving that imagine receiving that from the government saying, like, we will put you in jail for the rest of your life because of what you said, your joke. That's a scary thing to receive. And I did put that on Facebook and said, look, if you're trying to lock my client up to life in prison, here's a picture, like, I'm not making this up, this is what they sent us. And I guess through the power of Facebook, I posted on my Facebook making fun of them, telling them the truth, and it was the next day they just dismissed the case. All right. They can't take, come on. So, I could tell stories, but I've been speaking to a lot of people this weekend, and one thing I think about every day, not almost every day, but what would a legal system look like without the state? Without the government? I feel like this is one of the hardest things that people, when you try to advocate for no government, or a very, very small government, that want, police, fire, like, okay, we could privatize security, you could subscribe to a firefighting thing, but like, what do you do if someone kills your wife? Like, how is that, what in the market can there be to solve that problem? I mean, that's definitely something that's necessary. There are bad people out there. You see a lot of bad people and crazy people that just like aren't sophisticated, they don't think critically. It's like, they think about right this second, right now. Not thinking about tomorrow. People make decisions like that. And I don't have this answer, so I'm putting this out there. I don't expect it to come today, tomorrow, but one of the big hurdles, if we're gonna one day not have a state, hopefully, in our lifetime, that we need to, which I think the government is outdated. We can do better. And my personal view is I think technology can replace government services en masse, and already is. And the good ones, they can't stop you from replacing. Email instead of the post office. You got Uber and Lyft as far as like facilitating transportation instead of the Department of Transportation, whatever they do. We can have the best teachers teaching thousands or millions of people instead of a Department of Education, which does absolutely nothing. But what do we do to replace a court system? And what I've also realized is that the solutions, when they're real, it seems obvious, but if you were to propose Uber 20 years ago, someone would think you're crazy. And when we look at Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies replacing government's money, and they can't stop it. And I still don't understand how these things really work, but this is something real that can replace money systems and central banks, and they can't stop it. And these governments across the world are freaking out. And I bring that up just to show that the solutions that when you're advocating for a stateless society or no government, and somebody wants you to have the solution to everything, just point out that say, hey, just because I can't think of it doesn't mean somebody brilliant out there won't think of it. I mean, I would have never thought of Bitcoin and I don't even know how all this thing works, but they can't stop it. I'm currently on this case, so first of all, everything I talk about is public information. I'm not allowed to talk about anything about a case that's held in confidence, I'm currently on a case with the Wolverine Watchmen, if anyone knows who that is. It was a militia here in Michigan, and these guys are currently facing the charges providing material support to a terrorist or terrorist organization. And I can talk about that a little bit. Everything I do talk about is public. I mean, first of all, these guys were. What's that?
Was it ISIS or Al-Qaeda? Al-Qaeda.
Oh, it's a terrorist organization, the FBI.
Oh, it's a joke. I mean, it's. But you know, my client's Joseph Morrison. He's been in jail since October 8th. His bond was $5 million, and we got that down to $150,000, which you still can't pay. Who has $150,000? But you guys, in the liberty movement, you know, we were all out there shooting guns and stuff the other day, and there are people who don't like that. These guys in Wolverine, they're a bunch of Hawaiian shirt boys, a bunch of boob boys, okay? And the shit I have seen from the discovery, that's like what the evidence the government has, the level of access they have to your social media and your internet, everything is, like, seeing it for real is nuts. They have everything. It is the best way to put it. The FBI agent took the stand, and I think it was one of the other attorneys. He asked him about posting on Facebook, and his response, it was like the way he said it too. He goes, I don't think anybody should post on Facebook ever. From him, so I took that like, well, I think he was looking at me too. When he said that. But. And that's why I got the Hawaiian tie, because they actually testified and said that the Boog boys wear Hawaiian shirts as a way to disrespect the government. It's disrespect. The government's serious in order, and Hawaiian shirts are like, hey, I'm just here to chill and party. So that's how they feel about that. So I went on Amazon and got myself a tie I could wear to work. But what happened with these guys, and you see, I see this a lot in the news, is they created a Facebook group. They talk shit about the government. Nothing they said, I probably said worse things, you know, hanging out with my buddies, or maybe even last night, you know. Allegedly. They had a Facebook group. They, you know, had a militia, which is in our Constitution, our Second Amendment, very prevalent in Michigan. We got hunters, you know, very common. No, there's a lot of militias here. They send in their guy. Well, I guess they didn't send him. It was somebody on part of their Facebook group who decided, this is their story, that we're still investigating, that decided that he didn't like what they were talking about on Facebook. So he goes to the FBI, and the FBI says, hey, we'll just start handing you envelopes of cash to start wearing a wire in every single interaction with these people, and just getting in every single chat, everything, encrypted, signal, wire, all this stuff, they have it. So, they, and this, by the way, everything I'm talking about was stated on the record at the preliminary exam. This is not me just like saying things I read on a police report. This is what was said at preliminary exam by the witnesses, and I'm allowed to talk about it because it's already public information. They have this guy investigating them, and when their CI gets to their training, they're just hanging out, smoking weed, shooting paper targets, crawling on the ground, doing like army stuff. Just totally not sophisticated military tactics at all. Their CI, within a month, becomes the second, like number 2 in their group, and starts conducting and doing the trainings himself, and upping the ante of the trainings to do kill house scenarios where they set up for people who don't know what that is, they set up like a fake house that you kind of like breach in corners, shooting from cars and moving vehicles and like and all this stuff. And my client, who's a so-called terrorist leader, was not the leader because he's like the smartest guy or the richest guy or the most tactically, tactically well or anything. It's because he made a Facebook group. That's why he's the leader of this terrorist organization. And there were some people they're charged in federal court. Not my client's not charged in federal court. One of the names is Adam Fox. There's a couple other federally charged people, and the FBI knew these guys were legitimately crazy bad dudes, and we're in serious discussions about doing some harming police officers or doing something with the government. The federally charged defendants actually did go and stake out the governor's vacation home, one of her houses, and we have the audio recording where above the objections of the people in the Wolverine Watchman that said, no, these guys are crazy, they're talking crazy stuff, we don't want them around, they're loose cannons. The FBI invites them to my client's house. Says, hey, come on, come train at Joe's house. This is on recording. And basically, this guy, Adam Fox, comes to train to my client's house one time, and the group basically disbands. There's like inner fighting and stuff. I don't know, libertarians do that sometimes. And people end up disbanding, and then October comes around, and they SWAT team like 20 people's houses, and everyone's a terrorist and kicking doors and all that. And now they're charged with, providing material support to a terrorist organization. And number one, this law that they passed was created just a couple months after the 9/11 terrorist attacks. And there is not one case, not one published case since then. Maybe use Westlaw and LexisNexis. There's not one published case interpreting that law. So you get charged with a DUI. You can go and type in OWI, and it's like, well, what does the word operating mean? What does a motor vehicle mean? Does a power bike count? Is if you're sleeping in the front seat, does that count? So there's cases interpreting what does every word of operating while intoxicated mean? And same for every crime, marijuana, domestic violence, and drugs. There's plenty of cases interpreting. There's not one on what is the material support of a terrorist. So we're fighting this case now, and we don't even have clear rules. So what is material support? If you give somebody a penny, if I hand you a penny and say, use this penny to go kidnap your daughter, is that material support? I guess it's support, but is it material? If you tell some, if you just say, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, you're drunk around a bonfire and someone says, hey, we should go kidnap the governor. You're like, yeah. I don't know if anyone said anything like that before with their buddies. I've seen worse things on Saturday Night Live about former President Trump, but they're all okay. But is that enough? Is that material support just by saying, yeah, go ahead. If I say, hey, we should rob a bank, and you say, yeah, should the police kick in your door right that second? Well, I mean, in a conspiracy or an attempt, there has to be an act in furtherance of. So there was no, hey, pretend like you're kicking in the governor's door. There's nothing like that. There's no like gummy, tied up and hey, grab her and run, or there's nothing like that happened. So where that's at is we actually all three defense attorneys, we all have each one of the defendants, but all of us have filed entrapment motions. And we are saying that, but for the FBI, that they would have never even knew these other crazy dudes who are federally charged and pled guilty and convicted, that the FBI put this all together and shoved it down our client's throat. It's like they had the conspiracy theory, and then they made the conspiracy, and then delivered it to our clients, and then So you're under arrest.
Isn't that normal? Yeah.
And is that normal?
Isn't that what the FBI does?
That's what I've been learning.
That's normal.
I mean, that's what I've been learning. I think back now on just other things I've seen on TV and these bombings and school shootings and stuff, and the FBI always seems to be involved. There always seems to be some sort of crazy person or kid that they have ties with. Even like the Boston bombing a long time ago, I remember that the FBI was meeting with these brothers. So I won't get into all that stuff. But I'm just one person. I'm trying to do what I can to change things and to fight the government. And I just really appreciate everyone's support. I could keep telling stories, but if anyone, I'd like to actually just open it up. If anyone has any questions or anything about just the legal system or things I see going on.
Are you taking further clients?
What's that?
Are you taking other clients?
Am I taking other clients? Yes, I am. And in fact, we have a mobile application, and we are a sponsor of this event called Legal Wizard, and there's nothing like it. But it's a mobile application, and what you can do is you can take a picture of any legal document, like a traffic ticket, or say you get a warrant in the mail, or a court notice that you have to appear. It's completely free to use, and you can take a picture of any you can take a picture of your traffic ticket, and it gets sent, and you get a lawyer for your issue in your area at no cost to you, but you got to pay for the lawyer. But you can find a lawyer right away vetted by other lawyers for your issue in your area, and that's all there is to that. It's a great question. Okay.
Do you have a specific view on bail reform? There are a lot of people who think bail reform has gone too far and let all the bad guys back out to kill people, and that people think bail reform doesn't go far enough, and still too many poor people that go to jail. It's a very controversial topic. Do you have a view on it?
It's tough because it varies by judge and by jurisdiction. So, if you're in Oakland County, you could get in a fight with your girlfriend and be on, $10,000 cash bond and stuck. You can be in Detroit and stab 3 people, and you'll get a personal bond, or $5,000, 10%. You pay $500 to get out for stabbing, literally. But there has to be something done. There should be more clear rules to all. It's very, very just up to the individual judge right now. So the 2 things they look at is this person a flight risk, and is this person a danger to the community? And those are the 2 prongs that they look at, they weigh and they factor. But there are tons of people. This is one of the things where poor people are most negatively affected. And it's when you're in jail, you can't even being in jail sucks, but you can't even. It forces you to take a plea when you're innocent because you're stuck there. And you say, if I don't take a plea, I'm going to be here for another 6 months because I can't afford to pay $10,000 to get out. And if I don't take this plea, then my family, I have to do this. So yeah, I'm in support of bail reform. I think there should be more clear-cut rules. There should be more time limits to say, okay, you can set this bond, this $10,000 bond, but right now it's like 180 days that you're entitled to a personal bond, unless the judge says something, which is bullshit. But there should be like a 30-day, serious reconsideration. Right? Maybe even less than that, where people's lives aren't ruined over anything.
Do you have any clients who are suing Oakland County jails for forced vaccination?
No.
Do you have any insight into that?
I mean, inside, they, you know, when you go to jail, you lose a lot of your rights. I mean, you can't be, you know, you can't say, hey, get a warrant. You know, when you're in jail and they want to search you. You can't say, what am I being detained for? You're already detained. But I mean, but changing your, you know, making a medical decision like that is a next level infringement. I would call it, and it's something that can change. It's something that follows you out. Like when you leave the jail, you still have whatever you put in your body. And so it's not like when you go to jail, they just take your picture and they search you or whatever. Like that just affects you while you're there. But a vaccine goes on. I haven't heard of specific cases.
Something that's flown under the radar, allegedly, the county is forcing all its prisoners to be vaccinated against COVID. And allegedly there have been some deaths and fatalities.
What about private companies who are, I would say, discriminating against those who are not being vaccinated? For example, when I walk into my office, there is a poster, plastic, if you are unvaccinated, you must wear a mask. You cannot eat in public common areas with anybody else unless you're vaccinated.
Yeah.
What kind of actions can those companies come after us for? And how can we fight it?
Yeah, and I get a lot of phone calls with this. I mean, Michigan in particular is at will employment state. So your employer could say, you gotta wear a blue hat here every day, or if you don't, they can just fire you for no reason. They can't fire you because of like your religion, or you're a woman, or your skin color, or you know, there's certain specific protections. But this is a whole new area of issue. I mean, nobody would have thought 2 years ago that businesses would even dream of doing this, but it's like a social peer pressure. It feels like something should be done. It feels like it's a medical discrimination. It's like you know, your medical decision should remain very, very private. But I guess at the same time, as a libertarian, it's like, well, they're a private business. If they want to say, hey, you got to do 10 jumping jacks before you walk in here, that's their business. It's their private property. So I guess they should be able to set rules, but that's
Put
fine.
them on Facebook.
Huh?
Put them on Facebook.
I don't know, it's a pretty big company, I'm gonna face a lot of lawsuits if I do.
Yeah.
So you.
No, I mean, people should sue. People should try to change it. I mean, I'm against it. You shouldn't have to force somebody to do something. Ben, do you have your hand up? Okay.
I got a number, man.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, thanks everyone. I'll be around. Come say hi.
All right, everybody. Good morning.